Right, I figured now might not be too bad of a time to just cover some of the finer points of removing the carburetors from GS 425. Because if you have an old one, you're going to end up doing it a lot. So maybe this might save some people some time. First things first, no matter what, it sucks and it's impossible to get around. If you want the carbs out, you've got to take out the carb or the cam chain tensioner here. So it should be your first step. There's 1, 2, 3, 10 millimeter bolts there that hold it in. You've got to, you can use, if you can somehow figure out how to get a Phillips in there, you can use that, but I haven't had any luck with that. Before you take those bolts out, you want to loosen that little nut here, because that should be, it's just a set nut. So you loosen that, and you want to screw this in tight, because what that does is that holds the cam chain tensioner where it's at, otherwise it comes apart. So you want to screw that in tight, and then tighten that nut again, so that it it holds the cam chain tensioner in. Then you can take that out. That's one of the big issues. The next thing that's been kind of a pain in the butt for me is, I don't know if you can even see it here, right down through there is the throttle cables. I found, rather than trying to loosen up that guy there, or on the top this guy here, and then just try to force your way to get those out of the throttle, you're better off just going up here, taking apart this part here of the throttle and loosening these cables here first, so you have lots of play down in the tight space to get that throttle cable out. And then you can take those apart. The next thing you do after you loosen the throttle cables is really, and that's just a Phillips screwdriver up there to do that. The next thing is getting these off. The key, because this is all fixed here and here, what gives you the wiggle room to take it apart are these spacers here. So you just loosen these, also 10 millimeter nuts here, take those out, pull them out. You have to pull them out, but they come into contact here. So you actually have to rotate these around while it's loose enough, so you can pull these nuts out, and then that will slide free, and then you have your play, and that's the same on the other side too. Once you take that out, you can slide that away, and you have enough room, just barely enough room, to slide these carbs forward and then take them out. And then really, that's all there is to it to get them out, but I really don't understand why, I think that when they originally designed the bike, they didn't think that people would be pissing around with the carbs all the time, but this part here is a real annoying part, taking out the cam chain tensioner. The other thing that I have is just a note, is this little clamp here. When I'm reassembling it, this is just where the gas tank mounts up to, and that's just going to the front of the bracket that holds the carbs together. You can tighten that down. You can have that hold it up, because otherwise gravity is going to have that thing tip down a lot when you're trying to get all these things lined up. So this little thing here is kind of like an extra set of hands for you, and will help you reassemble everything in place. So that's kind of the thing. The other note that I do have is that the O-ring that goes between here and the spacer, if you use some grease inside where that goes and then stick it in there, it'll stay in place nicer, and then you don't have to worry about this thing when you slide it in there, because it's a tight fit, pushing it out or shearing it off or anything either. So that's just kind of the rundown of some of the things I've learned so far about taking the carbs out of the bike, and maybe it'll save some people some frustration.